Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Would you please remain standing? In the year 1947 and 48, the Will Rogers High School had really not established any kind of an alma mater. And there was a challenge to the student body in sort of a contest manner that whoever could create the composition and the lyrics to a song, the prize would be $25, and that person would also win the contest, which would become the Will Rogers High School alma mater. Dr. Robert Canfield, a senior that year in 1948, created the lyrics and the composition to what is now known as our alma mater. I was surprised when I talked to Dr. Canfield a few weeks ago that he said, "I cannot believe you still do that song." He had lost his music years ago, and I told him, "Dr. Canfield, I want to tell you, we proudly do that song. We have since you wrote it in 1948 until this present day. So would you proudly and excitedly sing with me our alma mater from Will Rogers High School, Dr. Robert Canfield." Our alma mater, thou art strong and true. Thy name shall live in the deeds thy children do. Thy gift shall be in life our guide. We will be true to thee, Will Rogers High.
Can you imagine being 15 years old, maybe 16, coming into this room, a part of the very first day of the very first week that this school opened, now 75 years ago? Maybe you can picture yourself at 15 or 16 in this very room, kind of looking at the awesomeness of it, wondering about the girl, the guy, occasionally hoping maybe that someone would inspire you, someone would challenge you, someone would mentor you, someone would become like a brother or a sister to you. This room, this place, this school came about because nearly 80 years ago, a group of people had a vision for Tulsa, a vision for education, and a vision for the future generations that would come after them. It seems to me the class of 1964 is about to have a 50th reunion. Class of 1974, a 40th reunion. There's a group that's gathering for a 25th, probably, reunion here this year. Time's a funny thing. Time's a funny thing. Just a heads up to the class of 1989, this year 25th year. 25 years from now at your 50th will be the 100th anniversary of this school. Take note about what's going on this year as we celebrate a centennial. And 25 years seems so far, far away. But as some of us know, the future is not that far away. If you don't mind, I'd like to offer a blessing. May God bless Tulsa's Will Rogers High School. May God bless the legacy of the administrators and the staff, the faculty, the volunteers, and the students who've come before us. And may God bless the students right now, the faculty today, this year. And may God bless us to inspire and bless the future students of Will Rogers High School. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. DeBoard. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dick Risk. I'm the founder and president of the Will Rogers High School Community Foundation. A minute ago, you saw the junior ROTC people doing the color presentation. And at this time, I'd like to call on their instructor, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Ronald Fry. Colonel Fry? How are you, sir?
Great, sir.
See you. On behalf of the foundation, I'd like to present to you this flag that was flown over the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., and obtained for us through the offices of Senator Jim Inhofe. And we hope that you will fly it proudly over the top of this building. And there is a certificate that goes with it, and hope that that's displayed here in the school.
We certainly appreciate this on behalf of our principals, our faculty, and our student body and the JRTC department. We will fly this with a rope. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. There it is. It's now my pleasure to introduce Steve Gregert. Steve is the executive director of the Will Rogers Memorial Museum in Claremore, and he is also an advisor to our board. And Ms. Cheryl Carter, who is the principal of Will Rogers College High School. So would you join me on stage? And Steve brought some books. We're most appreciative of this. This is a wonderful gift, and this is the complete writings of Will Rogers. And Steve is the editor or co-editor of all of these, and they're being presented to the school. Steve, would you like to talk about them?
Thank you, Dick. On behalf of the foundation, the commission, the staff, the docents, and the friends of the Will Rogers Memorial Museum in Claremore, I present to the library here at Will Rogers High School, on their behalf, this complete set of the writings and papers of Will Rogers, 27 volumes, which I hope that they will use to help extend the legacy of Will Rogers. Thank you very much. And
On behalf of the Will Rogers student body, faculty, staff, and community, I gladly accept this wonderful collection. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Now, Steve, don't leave. We have members out here. We have members out here?
Yes.
Okay. We have some guests from the Will Rogers Memorial Commission and Foundation.
Actually, one of the members of our foundation is being inducted tonight, and that is Linda Bradshaw. Another member of our foundation should be here, and Jack Spinks. They're very good. And there may be others. I apologize if it's hard to see out in the audience. But again, we appreciate all those that are here in attendance tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Well, we're here tonight to, am I in the right place? To celebrate the achievements of the latest inductees of the Will Rogers High School Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame belongs to the school, and the foundation has merely accepted the responsibility for its administration as an institution of the school. And the committee chairman for the Hall of Fame committee is previous Hall of Fame recipient, David Rader. And Dave, would you join us, please? There he is.
Thank you, Dick. On behalf of the Hall of Fame Committee, it is indeed an honor to submit this slate of honorees for 2013. Paula Combest Unruh, James W. Russell, Linda Chambers Bradshaw, Lynette Bennett Danskin, Richard Counts, Janet Wright Kizziar, and Gordon Morgan. All honorees have distinguished themselves in their respective chosen profession. Ms. Carter, do you endorse and accept these candidates on behalf of Will Rogers College High School?
I certainly do. One of the most exciting parts of the Hall of Fame for me has been having these candidates as our guests today in classrooms. What a joy it was to watch them interact with our students. And what an encouragement for our students to have the opportunity to talk with someone who has achieved their level of success, but who also occupied seats in the same classrooms that our students are sitting in now. Who knows? Perhaps one of these honorees has encouraged a future Rogers Hall of Fame candidate. Regardless, we are honored to accept and endorse this slate of candidates and thank each of them for the time they spent with us. I know you have inspired our students. Thank you.
We'd like for you to see what the Will Rogers High School Community Foundation is all about and our accomplishments in a very short period of time. We're 3 years old, a little over that, and we ask that you remember we're an organization of volunteers assembled for the purpose of raising funds and providing support for the students, the faculty of Will Rogers, in some way to give back to the school that gave us so much. So at this time, I'd like to roll a video and let you see.
physical renovations to the school. It's been fabulous work. Bob LaBasse is here tonight. I don't know where Bob is seated. He's been very much involved in the restoring of the physical part of the school and putting it together and working with Dr. Ballard. But would you not agree that the school just looks great right now? But with that, there's been a stirring inside the walls, and that comes from the leadership that we've had from our superintendent and our school board, and the resurgence of Will Rogers High School. Dr. Ballard has been so good to Will Rogers, and this is his last year as superintendent, unless we can talk him into one more, and do that. So Dr. Ballard, you did not have the honor to go to school here, but what we can say to you today is that we want to make you an honorary Roper. And thank you for all you've done for our high school.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you,
That
Dave.
says
I
honorary
appreciate
Roper on it, okay?
I got it.
Okay?
I got it.
Thank you.
I got it. Thank you. I very much want to be an honorary Roper, and actually the school board has talked me into coming back next year. So while I had announced my retirement some time ago, well, I must say that's a welcome sound to an urban superintendent to get applause on saying that he's going to come back next year. I love being an honorary Roper. Actually, probably a little known fact, my son actually worked here for 3 years, I think. 2 years, 3 years. He was an assistant principal here. I love this place. I absolutely love this place. I know how those of you who went to school here, I really do know how you feel. And I love to bring visitors here. And I love to come into this auditorium. And I love to wonder what it was like in 1942 or 1939 or 1956. And sometimes I like to just look at the hallways and I think about all of the excellence that went up and down those hallways. I appreciate this very much, and I appreciate the recognition that Coach Rader has made about the Board of Education, because this was the centerpiece of Project Schoolhouse. And you had something to do with that. In 2010, whenever we were first getting into Project Schoolhouse, I went around to every single high school and I talked about our need to become more efficient, both instructionally and economically. I went to every single high school and we publicized it. And I stood up in front of groups, and what I heard at every high school, with the exception of one, what I heard at every high school was, don't close any of our schools in our feeder pattern. Don't do that. Don't do that. I still vividly remember the night that I walked into the library, beautiful library at Will Rogers High School, and the place was full. And if I may be frank, a good number of those in attendance looked to be about my age or so. And I was curious about that. And the first speaker to speak, don't remember the name, you may be out there, was from Oklahoma City, and stood up and said, we drove over here from Oklahoma City to make a testimony tonight. And really the essence of that testimony was, Dr. Ballard, we want the greatness restored. We do. We want the greatness restored. And I will tell you that as we sat and made decisions about what could be the outcome from Project Schoolhouse, because it wasn't just about economizing for economic reasons. It also was about reaching for greatness in every place that we could. And frankly, this was the perfect place to reach for that greatness. When you take a look at not only those who are in the have been inducted into the Will Rogers Hall of Fame, but you take a look at people who probably won't even make it, all walks of life who had made significant contributions. So we made a conscious decision that we were going to revolutionize, we were going to reform, and we were going to rejuvenate Will Rogers High School. You know the rest of the story. I won't get into all of it, but it is working. We have gone to a high school now that is highly sought after. We have gone to a high school that in a very short period of time has become one of our highest achieving schools, and I promise you this, we will see this through, and Will Rogers will be totally restored to greatness. We are never any better than the shoulders that we stand on. And we have significant shoulders to stand on at Will Rogers. That's why it was important that I get to this event. And I could apologize for yesterday, but, several things came up that I didn't make it. I had said I would, but I'm in the process of relocating my mother to an assisted living center, and I got caught up in some things on Sunday afternoon. So that's pretty important to me, but this is also important to me. Coach Rader, thank you. I probably went on. I probably used up my allotment of time. I appreciate all of you being here. Continue to be involved with what we're doing at Will Rogers, and we will keep moving forward, and we'll make it great again. Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Ballard. At this time, I'd like to introduce the first vice president of the Will Rogers High School Community Foundation, my friend, singer, recording artist, previous Hall of Fame inductee, Miss Anita Bryant.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you. Whew. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Dick. You talked me into this, and I am so glad you did, but I wouldn't have missed it for anything. Every time I walk down the halls of this glorious Art Deco building, I'm just amazed at how beautiful it is. And I'm also amazed that I didn't really notice it that much when I was in school here. I was going down the hall saying, I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair. I'm going to wash that man. Never mind. It was a... But I was just preoccupied. But I'm so proud. This building has been included in the National Register of Historic Places. And thanks to the work of one of our alums, Betty Ann Brown Trinka, who persevered until it was recognized. So thank you so much, Betty Ann. We appreciate you. And of course, we conduct tours of the school on the second Monday of each month. And we'll continue to do so until after the 75th anniversary celebration. And it's my understanding that our good friend Steve Wright, who's also a director of the Community Foundation, as well as our tour director, nobody knows this school in this area better than Steve, that we had over 90 people on the last tour. So we're growing, and thanks, Steve, for all your hard work. It's really an honor to have been a student here. I cannot tell you how much it changed my life. I could talk all night about Doris Niles and Dr. Freeman, but we want to keep things moving, and I'm just so pleased to be here to help honor the newest inductees into the Will Rogers High School Hall of Fame. These candidates went through a very rigorous selection process, and we call the FBI. No, we didn't. All candidates received written nominations with contact information provided on each nominee. And prior inductees voted on the list of nominees after having been provided background information on each one. All finalists were asked to provide additional background information, including photos and other visuals, and each committed to attending the welcome dinner that we had last night, and it was beautiful and wonderful. And of course, the classroom visitations today, which are the most important of all. We want to influence these young people. And the ceremony itself tonight. We want to thank each of the honorees for making that commitment and for being present this evening. We would also like to recognize those previous Hall of Fame winners who are in the audience this evening. And if you'll bring up the house lights so we can see who they are and see their beautiful faces. Emily Moody Boyd is in the audience, we hope. Emily?
There she is, over there.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you. And Pat Moody, Catlin Bach, that's Ernest Moody's daughters. Brett Chandler, Don Chandler's son and corporation sponsor, the Rib Crib. Ooh, that's good. No, they're not here. Oh, probably eating ribs somewhere, And of course, our good friend Steve Cheesebro. And he's backstage. You'll see him later. And my dear friend that I ran the halls with, Gordana Moore Duca. Where are you, Gordana? Oh, is she here? Jim Dunn, are you here?
No.
There he is, right there.
Okay.
Carol Walsh Morsani.
They're backstage.
Oh, they're backstage also. And Frank Morsani. David Rader.
You've met met David.
Already you've met David. And Roger Randall.
He's not here.
Okay. Neil Sparks. Is my mother here tonight? Anybody?
Neil was here.
Anybody?
Neil was here.
Well, my husband Charlie's here. I mean, Bobby Jack Stewart. Several of these Hall of Fame members are backstage, of course, and taking time in tonight's program. You'll see them. Well, Dick, you're going to speak right now.
Right at this time, I'd just like to also recognize our directors and advisors of the foundation. Would you please stand just for a round of applause? I can't see you here. Thank you. And I'm it.
As you may have noticed from the posters, television coverage, and the newspaper articles, in 2014 marks the 75th anniversary of Will Rogers High School, and we're planning a spectacular birthday party. We're going to have a ball. As soon as the slides roll. But we're going to have a ball anyway. The first event is right now, of course, the Hall of Fame ceremony. And on April the 9th and the 10th is the Will Rogers Roundup. Oh, those days I remember. There was one time, I remember I was just stiff as a board, and I was, you were born to be kissed, miss, you were temptation. Oh, those were the good old days. And then on April the 11th, most classes are planning individual reunions and open houses. But finally, on April the 12th is our 75th anniversary gala, which we hope you'll all attend, featuring a golf tournament at the Hard Rock Casino, an open house right here at the school with tours and lunches, probably, cinnamon rolls, I think, an antique and classic car show, and finally, the evening gala at the Tulsa Convention Center downtown. So I know you'll all want to join your friends in attending this fantastic weekend celebrating our school. You can purchase tickets on our website, www.willrogersfoundation.net. As part of the 75th anniversary celebration, Paul Davis, well-known illustrator and graphic designer, and another Hall of Fame winner, has designed a beautiful commemorative poster. I hope we're showing slide this right there, celebrating Will Rogers and our school. I bought one last night, and they're wonderful. Should you purchase one of these posters tonight, Paul will set up in the main hall to sign it for you. And all funds generated from all of these events, including the sale of the poster, will go through the Community Foundation to the school and its students. Paul, would you stand, please, so everyone can say thank you for your generous donation? Where are you? Could we have the house lights? We want to see them. There you go, right down here. Thank you so much, Paul. We just love you. And now let's get started on the main event, the ceremony itself. May I introduce another Hall of Fame winner, Mr. Robert Bobby Jack Stewart, class of 1944, who will introduce our first inductee. Bobby Jack?
I'm here. Needless to say, it's a pleasure to be here to honor one of Will Rogers' finest graduates, a woman I've long admired. I first met Paula through her husband, Jim. Jim and I both played football for Will Rogers, and our future wives were girlfriends at Wilson Junior High. We remained friends throughout the years, and I mean several decades at this point. It's been amazing to watch Paula, how she's involved from a young wife and mother, first taking an interest in the local politics, into one of the most influential and active participants in our political process at both the state and national level. Paula's accomplishments are well documented in publications, which you've probably been given the hide on. The program listing our Hall of Fame inductees, and then the slideshow about her life that you'll enjoy. One of the most impressive facts about Paula is that she was the first female to be elected chairman of the Republican Party at the state 1949 convention. Prior to that time, neither party had ever elected a woman to hold that position. While contributing her time and talents to the Republican Party throughout the years, she has also been widely recognized for her civic work here in Tulsa. However, Billie Jean Clough, who nominated her for the Hall of Fame, said it was not Paula's civic work or her political prowess that impressed her. It was her heart that has led Paula to serve in humanitarian efforts that led Billie Jean to want to nominate Paula for this honor. A perfect example of Paula's caring, courage, and generous spirit was enhanced a few years ago after Hurricane Ivan influenced so much damage in Florida. Long active with the American Red Cross, Paula volunteered to travel to Florida for an extended time to help in any way she could. She helped provide meals, shelter, and drove an ambulance from Pensacola to Orlando with no training whatsoever for driving an ambulance. Paula said all the cars just saw her coming and got out of the way. That was just one of the many times she nearly gave her husband a heart attack when he found out about it. How impressive it is as well to note that Paula served the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, and the Tulsa Global Travel Foundation. I think we can all agree that Paula Unruh is truly a great woman for all seasons. What a privilege to know her. Paula?
Paula Combest Unruh graduated from Well on the Hill and attended the University of Tulsa and the University of Arkansas. She soon discovered an active interest in politics, which took her all the way from the Oklahoma Young Republicans to the national political arena in Washington, D.C. Her position as Oklahoma Young Republican National Committee woman led her to Paige Belcher, 1st District Congressman, who offered her a job in his Washington, D.C. office. She ultimately became his campaign manager for many years. Paula's list of community service and honors include American Red Cross Board, Parent-Child Center, Legal Aid Chairman for Tulsa County Bar Association, Junior Association of Tulsa Boys Home, Tulsa Town Hall Board, President of the Tulsa Philharmonic Junior Association, President of the Women's Association, and Cinderella Ball Chairman. In 1973, Paula was honored by Women in Communications as one of their Women of the Year. And in 1974, the mayor asked her to co-chair the Tulsa Performing Arts Center bond issue campaign, which passed after being defeated 3 previous times. In 1975, President Ford appointed Paula to a 9-year term on the National USO Board. In 1981, President Reagan appointed her to serve as the Director of Consumer Affairs for the Department of Energy. President Reagan again appointed her as Principal Deputy Director General of the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service, the first woman to serve in that capacity. She has led international trade missions to Europe and Japan and was named Executive Vice President of the Tulsa Global Trade Foundation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Paula Unruh.
honor it is to be here, to be the recipient of this award. I just can't tell you how thrilled I am, because it's been 66 years since I've been on this stage. And once you graduate, you think you'll never be on the stage again for any reason. But then I realized that I was on the stage during graduation when we came down the aisle. Half came down this aisle and half the other. And I was so pleased to be the one chosen to lead, because I thought that was a special thing to be tasked for, until I found out they did it by height. Well, I wasn't too tall then, and I'm still not quite that tall now. You've heard about my political career, and that's what it was. So I'm going to tell you a couple of other things. I want Anita Bryant and Lynette, who are going to be on here later, to also know that I cared a lot about music. And it came into my life very early. The New York Metropolitan Opera brought an opera to town called Madame Butterfly. And for those of you who don't know the story, I hope all of you do, but American serviceman, officer in the Navy, took up with this Japanese woman, and they had a baby. And he promised to come back for her and the baby someday. Well, he came back all right, but he brought his American wife. And she was so brokenhearted that she couldn't stand to live to give him her baby. So they had tryouts for this child, and all the children they tried out. When she was blindfolding the child, and the prima donna stabbed herself and screamed, all the kids were terrified. And they yanked the blindfold off, and they didn't get the part. Well, I was trying out, and they blindfolded me, and I sat there, and then she stabbed herself, and then she screamed, and I just sat there. And I have decided that was preparing me for my political life later on. Getting back to Will Rogers High School, the roundup was the big deal every year for everybody. And my husband and I came back 10 years later, just to hear Anita Bryant sing, this little gal up on the stage with this huge voice. It was wonderful. But the song, I had a partner. We didn't have voices like she did, but we thought we could sing, and she carried the tune and I did a little harmony, and we were on in our junior year, and then we were on again in our senior year, and we had seen a movie, Two Sisters from Boston, and in that show they sang, "There are two sides to every girl and two to me." And we thought it was a really cute song. It turned out it was kind of vaudeville, but we didn't know anything about vaudeville then. But my mother made both of our costumes, and it was a long blue dress with black lace around the edge, very full, with a great big hat and black plumes. And we thought we were pretty hot stuff. And we had the orchestra playing for us. Mr. Combest was the band or orchestra director. So we actually got to sing with music by a big assortment of instruments. And when we sang the song and we got to the second half, and we said, "There are two sides to every girl and two to me." Well, we turned around and the back side of our dress was out. Except we had white lace ruffled shorts on. And it was a little shocking the night of dress rehearsal because Miss Trusty, the senior counselor, was sitting up in the back row of the balcony, and she thought we didn't have anything on. And we got called into her office, but the funniest thing that happened was the band director dropped his baton because he had seen us, he'd worked with us in singing the song, and in school clothes you turn around, no big deal. So anyway, that was my contribution to music, certainly here at Will Rogers. I want to tell you just one other thing about being at this school, and it's probably the most important lesson I learned in my life, and it was in history class, and it wasn't about history. I was on the student council, and every Friday, Mr. Kubik, the history teacher, would have 5 minutes of strange, out-of-this-world questions. And he asked me 2, which I will never forget because I didn't know the answer to either one. And one was, Paula, what kind of clouds are those out in the sky today? And I looked out the window. I hadn't the faintest idea. And then the second question he asked me was, who wrote I Pagliacci? Who's I Pagliacci? I hadn't the faintest idea. And there was always some boy in the room that knew the answer. It taught me a lesson I needed to learn, probably earlier than a junior in high school. He taught me how much I didn't know. And that's a good lesson to learn somewhere along the way, and maybe I quit chasing boys and football players and things like that. I just want to tell you that I am so thrilled to be here. I've used up my 3 minutes. They were so scared they were going to have to get a thing to pull me off.
And we all know she deserves her trophy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations to Paula. Great honor to be here, great pleasure to be here. You know, for many of us, we weren't much allowed up on this stage when we were students at Will Rogers. And so it's nice now to be able to come back and be up here. Earlier this evening, we sang the anthem of Will Rogers. And in the anthem are the words, "Thy name shall live in the deeds thy children do." And the Hall of Fame is about celebrating examples of what Rogers graduates have achieved. But it's important to remember that Rogers graduates have excelled in all different kinds of ways and in different kinds of areas. The people that are in the Hall of Fame are here because we serve simply as symbols of what Rogers graduates in so many other places and in so many other ways have done to honor the memory of this school. And so I congratulate all of you as well for the contributions you've made to our community in the many ways in which you have served. It's my great pleasure to introduce this evening a distinguished academic and researcher, someone who traveled the world as a teacher and a scholar, who speaks fluent Spanish, as many of today's Rogers students do as well, someone who's published multiple books in English and in other languages that have been published abroad. Some of the books are used as college textbooks around the country. A person who has been elevated to the highest ranking of any professor in the Connecticut state system. You'll hear more about him in a minute. But when I look at the honorees, I look at what they symbolize for our school and what they communicate to the students that we have today. And one of the things that strikes me as a lesson that Jim Russell provides to current students is that you may not be at Rogers the class president. You may not be known as the brightest in your class, but the key to success is how hard you work. Jim tells me, as a member of the swim team, he was not even very distinguished at that, but he was one of us, and because of the hard work that he contributed in years after he left, he achieved great prominence. Another lesson that his life symbolizes is that although making money through your career is a good and honorable thing, there are lots of other ways of having a career that are also good and honorable, and that we should judge people by the ways they contribute to their community, to the academic world, in all of the different kinds of ways in which we make our contribution. And the third thing he symbolizes is that graduating from Will Rogers, we can go on and do noble things in our careers. We can make a name for ourselves in whatever endeavor we undertake, but we can also change the world. And Jim, in many ways, has devoted of himself to changing the world. Just as Paula Unruh has done, Jim did from the perspectives that he brought to what the world needed. So it is my great honor to present Dr. James Russell.
After graduating from Rogers in 1962, James Russell became active in the 1960s civil rights and anti-war movements. He participated in the 1964 Tulsa sit-ins and initiated a successful campaign that included basketball star Marcus Haynes to integrate the Sand Springs public schools. In 1966, he became the first editor of New Left Notes, the national newspaper of students for a democratic society. He received a PhD in sociology from the University of Wisconsin in 1975. In a career that has combined critical scholarship with social activism, he has taught at universities in the United States and as a Fulbright professor at the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de México in Mexico and Masaryk University in the Czech Republic. In 2005, he was named University Professor at Eastern Connecticut State University, the highest honor in the Connecticut State University system. He is the author of 8 books, including Social Insecurity, 401ks and the Retirement Crisis, Double Standard, Social Policy in Europe and the United States, Escape from Texas, a novel of slavery and the Texas War of Independence, and After the Fifth Son, Class and Race in North America. About Double Standard, Francis Fox Piven, president of the American Sociological Association, wrote, "This is a wonderful book, a sweeping portrait that helps us to understand the differences between the European and American welfare states and why these differences are so important." About Escape from Texas, Johns Hopkins historian Ben Vinson III wrote, "No novel has so astutely captured the mindset of black slaves and their complicated relationships with Mexico during the years leading up to the Mexican-American War."
Ladies and gentlemen, Please welcome James Russell.
Thank you very much. You are all very, very kind. I flew in here from Connecticut, a state that is not known for its cultural warmth, and I'm having a hard time getting used to all of this Oklahoma friendliness, but it's beginning to come back. In the career that I've had, I've been just very, very lucky in terms of the people that I've run into, also the period of time in which I lived. The Greeks had a saying that no man ever enters the same river twice, and nobody ever enters the same society twice or the same historical period. I think between 1960 and 1964, I graduated in 62, I underwent more changes in that period of time than ever since in my lifetime. And a part of those changes happened here at Will Rogers. Some of it intangible, some of it in intangible ways. I was very lucky to have as a friend Roger Randall, who got me very enthusiastic about politics. I got a very solid education, I think, here at Will Rogers. A lot of the skills that are in those books were really learned here. My latest book is about pensions, and you have to do a lot of math, and all the math I got here at Will Rogers, and it's stayed with me, It's also helped me balance my checkbook and other kinds of things over time, but it's all very important. And other people in time that I met at the University of Oklahoma, I met a group of people who got me reading a man named C. Wright Mills. I then moved to Wisconsin to study with his professor, which is a man named Hans Gerth, a refugee scholar from Nazi Germany, who I spent many years trying to understand classical European social thought and trying to apply that within an American context. And that was very valuable to me. And so it goes on in terms of just having been around really wonderful people in this time, and it started here at Rogers. It also was very important that I graduated at a time when the civil rights movement was underway. And, that forced me to think about why this long shadow of slavery, what that had done in this country, and to really try to understand it and what was to be done about it. Just to bring all of that full circle, I was participant in the Tulsa sit-ins, also in integrating the Sand Springs school system, have been away from here for nearly 50 years. We are now trying to put together a commemoration of the 50th anniversary of those two events, which is coming in 2014. And so I've now taken my research skills to try to recover a piece of history that was really lost, because I looked on the internet and there was no evidence that this had ever taken place. And I just want to say that during the 3 days that I've been here, I managed to hook up with people in Sand Springs who had been there 50 years ago, who I had completely lost touch with. And so that brings it really full circle. Oklahoma was always the launching pad for whatever I became, for better or worse. And so all of you are very, very kind, and I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce, this is Coke Meyer. Coke is Will Rogers' great niece. She is 93 years old.
Thank you. I am going to be here on behalf of Linda, Chambers, Bradshaw. And I am so happy to be here in the Will Rogers High School. I was here a couple of years ago for their big gala, and it was such fun. And I got to be backstage then, and I've been backstage tonight. They call it the green room, but I didn't see much green in there, but I saw a lot of great people, and I was happy to be among them. And I have always been a friend of Linda's and her family. She and Wayne make a great team, and in 1979, they made the Tulsa Gymnastic World. And they needed to do this because their children were ready to do gymnastics, and there wasn't anybody to do it in Tulsa to teach them or to help with them. So they made their own company and built their own business to further all of these young people in Tulsa. It's been a real pleasure and a blessing for them, as well as for their girls and their grandchildren. I grew up in Chelsea until I was 9 years old. Chelsea was up the road here on the famous 66 historical now highway. And my grandmother Maud Rogers Lane was a sister of Will Rogers. He was the youngest of the family. And Aunt Sally McSpadden was the oldest sister, and my grandmother Maud was next, and then the sister May Stein was next, and then little Willie came. And that made the four of the children that grew to be adults. And so we lived at grandmother's house, and it was called Sunset Farm. And so in 2009, I got to go back to that house the very first time, since I had been there only when I was 10 years old and left. And my good friend Linda was one that insisted that we do it, and she kept after me. And then my good friend Carolyn Wilcox went with us, and Ollie Starr, and Farrell Prather, and Neva, Kinley, and myself. And it was really walking back in time. They say you can't go back to your old home, and I did it, and I found it like it was. It had been damaged by fires, and it had quite a lot of changes, and still it was the same for me. I could walk through it and just see us all there as a family, my aunts and my dad and mother and brothers and sisters. Also, I could see the pictures in my mind of Uncle Will when he was there, and my grandmother was ill and bedfast, and so I was there at that time, and he was always so sweet to his sisters. And he felt very sad when my grandmother passed away. My family changed places and sold the farm, and we went to Bartlesville, and that was just back in 1928. And so we lived there, and I was there when Uncle Will's plane crashed was in Alaska, and we went through all of that, and but all the in-between times I got to travel with Uncle Will. He would come into the airport at Tulsa, and we would meet him and take him different places around the state. And Linda was in on a lot of things later, but see, she's much younger than I am. And so on my 90th birthday, 28 of us flew out of Tulsa to go to Washington, D.C. to celebrate my 90th birthday. And they were all Pocahontas girls and friends. Linda was one of them. And we went one night to see the Amelia Earhart movie. And I was just so enthralled, and I said, oh, I remember this. And when we came out, I was talking about it, and to Linda, just like that, she was right there with me when this all happened. And she said, Coke, I wasn't even born yet. So anyway, I'm doing too much talking about me.
I love her. I love her.
I had notes written, and
She did.
and they told me, no, don't bring those out here. Just come out and talk.
She's supposed to introduce me.
And I do. And Linda Chalmers Bradshaw is the class of 1960. And she is a nomination for the Hall of Fame for this famous, wonderful high school.
Let's introduce the video.
I am going to have a video now to show you about Linda.
Linda Chambers Bradshaw is known by many in the Tulsa community as the owner of Tulsa World of Gymnastics. Others know her as the one who took Will on the Hill to heart, becoming a leading authority on the man, Will Rogers. After graduating from the University of Tulsa with a degree in music, she studied at the Princeton New School for Piano Pedagogy. Linda became a docent at the Will Rogers Memorial and Museum in Claremore, Oklahoma in 2008, and currently sits on the board of directors for the Will Rogers Memorial Foundation. She was named coordinator of their first ever major fundraiser and founded the Rotary-sponsored Will Rogers Gala, which annually honors a person who most exemplifies the attributes of Will Rogers. She was instrumental in protecting and preserving the rare portrait of Will Rogers by Italian artist Count Arnaldo Tamburini, which was presented to the school in 1954 and hung there until 1997. It was permanently loaned to the Gilcrease Museum in order to provide climate control, light protection, and improved security. A high-quality photographic copy now hangs in the school. Linda was the first woman to hold the office of president of the Tulsa Rotary Club and has been a major participant in their water well project in Nicaragua. She has served as meet director for USA Gymnastics Olympics qualifying events. In addition, she has worked with the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce and the United Way. She has coached Special Olympics gymnastics and served on the board of Tulsa Advocates for the Rights of Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, TARC. She was an Oklahoma delegate to the White House Conference on Small Business in 1995, and that same year was named Tulsa Chamber's Small Business Person of the Year.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Linda Bradshaw.
To receive this prestigious recognition into the Will Rogers High School Hall of Fame. It would be 53 years ago that I stood on this stage, probably perhaps at this same podium, and read the class bulletin because I served as the class secretary for the class of 1960. And our laureate would read, for those of you who aren't high school graduates, that's our yearbook. 1960, it would read at the very beginning. And all our yesterdays made this a fabulous, frantic year. Ike and Nikita exchanged house calls. Man photographed the backside of the moon. Oklahoma emerged from a 50-year drought. Tulsa grew to 7 high schools. And we laughed and played and worked and wept. And from these meaningful days, we look forward to all our tomorrows. I never dreamed, ladies and gentlemen, that one of my tomorrows would bring me back to this stage. And so to the Will Rogers Community Foundation members and to all who organized and worked tirelessly to make this evening so special for all the honorees, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. This honor is even more special to me because I shared it tonight with my dear friend Coke Meyer. She is very special to the Rogers family, as you heard tonight, and she knows that I am a true student of her Uncle Will. The traditions of this school have been honored many times by the successes that its graduates have had, and the great traditions of leadership. I must mention Dr. Raymond Knight, who served as a commissioner for the Will Rogers Memorial for almost 20 years, and also Roy Lewis, Nora Cook, her leadership legacy, and all of the principals and professors over the years. The last 75 years of their service to this great school deserves the very best that we as alumni can be. Our alma mater, thou art strong and true. Thy name shall live in the deeds thy children do. Thy gift shall be in life our guide. What great words to live by. Will Rogers left us millions of words as well to live by. My personal favorite, live your life so that whenever you lose, you are ahead. I accept this award tonight and this honor in recognition of all those who have been in my life and who have been a contributing factor for any of the successes that I may have had. And no acceptance speech would be complete without mentioning Mom. So I'll not be an exception. Perhaps my best lessons from my mom would be learned as I spent my hours and days at the piano. Mistakes and wrong notes over and over. And she always said with love in her voice, "Play it again, Linda Lee. Play it again." And so I have, and I did, and I will, for all of our tomorrows are precious. Thank you very much for this lovely recognition.
my. This is so exciting to be here tonight among all these honored people. I feel very fortunate to be able to celebrate tonight, celebrate such an exceptionally gifted, talented, and beautiful woman, both inside and out. My friend Lynette Bennett, my friend and classmate. Lynette and I have known each other since we were 5 years old, and she has always been beautiful. I actually envy her because she has long legs, and I still do. She and I sang in the church choir at Boston Avenue Methodist Church when we were 5 years old. She continued singing and developed the beautiful voice that we will hear later this evening. And somewhere along the line, I was advised to develop some other talents. Lynette and I both shared Campfire Girls. And that was a program some of you may or may not know about that teaches young girls leadership skills, service, and self-confidence. Lynette embraced and excelled in those lessons. Those lessons she has followed throughout the rest of her life. I always knew her to be dedicated and hardworking. She studied hard. She studied singing, dancing, piano, elocution, in addition to the classes at school. All of these things contributed to this wonderful theatrical career that she has had. She is much like Will Rogers. She also excelled on the international stage and screen, and she's made over 400 commercials. Like Will, Lynette is multi-talented. She is an accomplished actress, singer, dancer, and author, having written and performed her own one-woman shows. Her most recent one, called Will Rogers' Romance with Betty and America, will air in January on OETA. Let's actually now take a look at her resume, that we might look at the rest of what Lynette has done for us. Oh dear, I think they'll come and get me with a hook. So let's celebrate, let's continue to celebrate this wonderful woman, Lynette Bennett Danskin. Celebrate her talent, her dedication, and her beautiful soul. Thank you.
Lynette Bennett Danskin was a star at Will Rogers and went on to become a star internationally. During her Tulsa days, besides singing, dancing, and playing the piano in the Roundup and other events at Rogers, she appeared in the annual Sunrise Easter pageant. Lynette went on to become an award-winning Broadway, film, and television actor, singer, dancer. She has lived and performed in New York City, London, and Los Angeles, and starred in productions at Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center's Avery Fisher Hall, Radio City Music Hall, and London's West End. Her films have been shown at the New York and Sundance Film Festivals. Lynette's Broadway performances include Funny Girl, starring Barbra Streisand, and The Yearling, starring David Hartman. In London, she played reporter Mary Sunshine in the West End production of Chicago. Other London performances include leads in The Merry Widow, The Merry Wives of Windsor, and The Magic Flute. Off-Broadway, she starred in The Lion in Winter and Gigi. Television appearances include The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, One Life to Live, As the World Turns, America's Most Wanted, and Married with Children.
Here come the judges.
Merry Christmas, Darcys. I see you've outspent yourselves as usual. It is a beautiful display, though. So lifelike. Yes, but Mary looks a bit trampy.
Well, I hate to say it, but I think we may have a winner.
Yes, I won! Wait a minute. Look at the Bundy's window. Is that our neighborhood?
I made it myself, out of gingerbread.
Look, Marge, isn't that your father with his telescope? Congratulations, Mrs. Bundy. Here's your trophy. And $100.
Mother was a one-time ballerina who spent 5 hours a day dancing in front of a mirror.
She took very good care of herself, and it showed. In fact, I believe Mother was the most beautiful woman in the world.
How do I look?
Just wonderful, Mother. Wonderful. Swan-like neck, white, unblemished skin.
Theo was a fortunate man.
That's weird.
What's wrong?
Oh, I'd swear I smelled gardenias. But in January, I don't think so. That's his flower. Whose flower?
Rogers.
He brought me a gardenia corsage on our first date. We had gardenias at our wedding. And for anniversaries and birthdays. I thought I smelled gardenias earlier, but I was afraid it was just my imagination. Do you know what that means?
I don't know.
That means that he's here. And he's trying to tell you that he's okay. And that you should stop grieving.
Lynette's cabaret act was orchestrated by her former pianist, Barry Manilow. Lynette is probably best known to television audiences for her marvelous one-woman show on PBS, Will Rogers' Romance with Betty in America.
And then I said to the lady, oh, it's the lieutenant governor, is it? Well, what does he do? He don't do anything, she said. What do you mean, don't do anything? I said. Don't he even get up in the morning?
Oh, yes, she said. He gets up every morning and he says, "Is the governor any worse?" And then he's free for the day.
Commissioned by Gilcrease Museum, Lynette also wrote and performed in Homeland's The Surprising Women of the West. She is listed in Who's Who in Entertainment and Who's Who of American Women.
I get to work on God's totally heaven is great, they say, a holiday in every way. I know there's none so pure, I cannot cure. I know for sure believe for me will never disappear. And that's the life after life. All the Methodist.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lynette Bennetts.
Places, please. Safety curtains coming up. Quiet, everybody. Curtain up. You've got nothing to live but us. You'll be swell. You'll be great. I can tell. Just you wait. That rocky start on the lift you when you're down. The headaches, the heartaches, the backaches, the flops, the sheriff who escorts you out of town. The opening when your heart beats like a drum. The closing when the customers won't come. There's no business like show business, like no business. I know, but traveling through the country will be thrilling. Standing out in front on opening night, smiling as you watch the theater filling, and there's your billing out there in lights. There's no people like show people. They don't run you out of dough. Wrong. Yesterday they told you you were going too far. That night you open, oh, there you are. Next day you're dressed like a movie star. Let's go on with the show. Let's go on with the show. It's gonna be a great show.
Everyone dim around. Lights up. Curtain.
Just a second. I'm Frank Morsani. Congratulations.
I was surprised and humbled when I learned that I was to be inducted into the Will Rogers High School Hall of Fame. It's a thrill to be on this stage again and to stand here for this very significant reason. I have memories to treasure of Will Rogers High School. Wonderful things like playing the cello in the orchestra, singing in the choir, and dancing in the roundup. I remember we were going to do an operetta, The Fortune Teller, for the first time. And Mr. Freeman was standing way back in the balcony as he listened to us audition. And he said to me, "Lynette, your voice has ping." And I thought, what's ping? P-I-N-G. And he said, well, that means you have a light voice, but it carries clear up to the back of the balcony. So I thought, oh, well, that's nice. So then he invited me to choreograph a tap chorus for The Fortune Teller. So I worked with 6 girls, and I did a military tap. And so we had our little short white satin costumes with our gold braid and epaulettes, and oh, we thought those costumes were so spiffy. Some teachers that I really enjoyed were Ms. Bateholtz in art and Ms. Falkenstein for senior English. And then remember, Dr. Knight could call each of us by name. In assemblies, we'd have scripture and prayer, and then we sang the national anthem. So as we'd finish the Star Spangled Banner, we'd say, "And the home of the brave." And then we'd yell, "Beat Central." And when Warren and I go downtown to the Tulsa PAC, sometimes the audience stands and sings, "And the home of the brave." And I turn to Warren and I say, "Beat Central." The foundation has been positively amazing with its new vision for Will Rogers High School. I'm a proud alumna, and I want to thank each of the foundation members for this splendid event that they've created this evening. Being inducted into the Hall of Fame touches my soul. I love each of you and want to thank you from my deepest heart for your friendship. Friendships are wonderful, aren't they? And the old friends are the very best ones. God bless each one of you, and God bless Will Rogers High School.
Good evening. My name is Beth Dennis, and I graduated from Will Rogers High School in 1959 with a guy named Richard Counts. Richard was one of my closest friends. He grew up with his parents and two younger sisters. He had a great family history to carry forward since he and his wife Sandy have been married almost 50 years now. How can I describe Rich in 1959? He was rather quiet until he got to know you. He was extraordinarily talented in so many things. He was very intelligent, and he had a wicked sense of humor. Rich and I became friends during our junior year, and we continued to stay in touch through a few years of college. We were rather an unlikely combination. Rich loved classical music. I loved rock and roll. I was very social. Rich could have cared less. Rich was very intelligent. Now, what can I say about me? But you know, the friendship worked. I loved his sense of humor. He could see humor in the most mundane things, and he always made me laugh. Even more important, Rich could laugh at himself. During our senior year at Rogers, Rich became a lab assistant in a chemistry class. One afternoon, he had the opportunity to demonstrate the production of chlorine gas by the oxidation of hydrochloric acid with manganese dioxide. Now, aren't you proud of me? I got through all those words. Rich wanted to be sure that the demonstration wouldn't fizzle, and apparently he got a little generous with one of the elements. The chemical reaction went really well. In fact, a little too well, when all of a sudden green chlorine gas was not only appearing in the flask and tubing, but billowing out and over the desktop and onto the floor, and the smell was literally clearing the room and probably the whole second floor of the school. The teacher and all the students were running around opening windows or heading for the doors. Now, Rich will tell you it was a really minor incident. A minor, perhaps. Things got a little exciting for everyone else. If that happened today, the whole building would probably have been evacuated. But our fearless hero bravely flushed the mixture down the drain, and the smell and the green gas slowly disappeared. We teased him about that for weeks. Rich was an extremely supportive friend. He had and still has a talent for making people feel really good about themselves. He thought I could do things that I had no idea I could do. But he had faith in my abilities and taught me to believe in myself. I'm sure that's one reason that he's been so successful. He's a nurturing man. I can see him being an excellent leader and a very kind person to work with and for. And that's rare in today's world. My mother always told me that you were known by the company that you keep. I'm very proud to have kept company with Richard Counts. Thank you.
Seattle has a world-class blood center. As you travel the rest of the world, people elsewhere know about the blood center. They know about its research. And that accomplishment takes vision and determination on the part of the leadership, and I think we all owe a debt of gratitude to Rich.
The Blood Center is there providing a lot of information to support so much research in these areas that are critical to the world, and yet I think it is just so quietly effective. A lot of that is Dr. Counts and the way he's there, he's supportive, he's making sure the priorities get taken care of, but he's not running around taking credit.
Blood centers here, we take that for granted. And it's, I think, through his leadership and direction that we are so secure in the community.
And then he's passionate about the research, and that research is an investment in the future for the Blood Center.
Don't you suppose one of Rich's great attributes that we talk about, what a quiet leader he is his ability to attract really outstanding people to the staff. And he attracted some amazing young people from around the world.
He's really a physician scientist. He began, his research career as a basic biochemist, worked on hemophilia and other clotting disorders, and understands what research is about. And so he set a level of excellence because he understood what was required to build a research program.
He has managed and considered it very important to maintain the focus of the Blood Center as a medical institution, where we're not just a business manufacturing blood components, but our primary focus is taking care of patients and making sure that the patients in the community get the right service.
Richard Counts could have been a successful actor, writer, musician, or businessman. But thankfully for people the world over, he chose to be a physician. He earned his BA and MD at Washington University Medical School. St. Louis internship and residency followed at University Hospital, University of Washington in Seattle. He spent 2 years as a clinical associate in hematology at the National Institutes of Health, Bethesda, Maryland, then returned to the University of Washington, from which he retired in 2008 as Professor of Medicine, Division of Hematology, and became Professor Emeritus. Rich established one of the first centers in the U.S. for comprehensive care of hemophilia, a rare inherited bleeding disorder caused by the lack of a critical blood protein. The Puget Sound Blood Center, of which he was president and CEO, was among the first to produce large quantities of a concentrated form of this protein from volunteer donors. Dr. Counts has published an impressive list of textbooks and peer-reviewed papers. PSBC serves hospitals all over Western Washington by providing about 200,000 units of red cells annually for transfusion, and operates a large testing lab which serves 4 states, performing sensitive DNA testing for infectious agents on donated blood. And of hemophilia patients were expected to die by the age of 20. Today, because of Dr. Counts and others like him, most hemophilia patients enjoy near normal life expectancy and the ability to have careers and families. Rich and his UW colleagues discovered the most common causes of post-traumatic and post-surgical bleeding and developed techniques for preventing this fearsome complication. These procedures have been widely adopted and have significantly reduced the mortality of post-surgical bleeding.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Richard Counts.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Steve Cheeseborough, and it's my honor to present to you Dr. Richard Counts. And just in case you forgot, Rich is a member of that great class of '59.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you both for the nice introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here. I spent many happy hours in this auditorium When I was in high school, I was interested in chemistry and in science, and I played the piano, as you heard. But I also was active in a lot of the plays and the drama. So this was, the stage was kind of hallowed ground. You couldn't get onto the stage unless you really worked and rehearsed and learned your lines, and then finally, when everything was ready, we were allowed to actually be on the stage. So I'm not ready tonight, but it's nice to be back on the stage after all these years. And it's great to see the school in such good condition. When we were students back then, we all worked, were told that we needed to work hard, to do our best, to make the school proud of us, our teachers, our parents proud of us. And so I worked grimly to make everybody proud of it, me. Probably not as hard as I should have, but grimly. And since I've been away, I've been proud of Will Rogers High School. Actually, as a matter of fact, most recently, I was in Alaska and taking leave of a group of people getting into a float plane. And as we were standing there on the float, somebody came up and said, "Oh, everybody turn around and smile, and we'll take your picture." So almost reflexively, I said, "Like Will Rogers." Well, the pilot, knowing the tragic history, gave me a really dark look. So I said, "Well, Will Rogers was one of my heroes. I went to Will Rogers High School." It didn't impress the pilot very much. He was not. It's been wonderful to get back and see what's going on with the school. And I was proud of the school today, being able to talk to students and the teachers and the faculty and staff, and to hear all the great things that they've got going. I was proud tonight to hear what the community has decided, the conviction that the greatness of the school needs to be continued and restored, so that the glory days and the greatness of Will Rogers High School won't slip into the past. And there have been many outstanding accomplishments by graduates of the school over the years, and I'm confident now and hopeful that there will continue to be many in the future. Education is at a difficult state in our society today, and every generation needs to continue to work to rebuild that greatness everywhere. And I'm sure that in future years there will be students who are in school today who will be up here getting awards, and will feel as lucky as I felt that they had a chance to go to Will Rogers High School. So I thank the Will Rogers Foundation for this. It's a great honor to me, and I'm very appreciative of it. And I thank all of you for your support of the school, and we will expect continued greatness in the future.
Don't worry, we're not going to talk that long. In 1964, we were students of Jan Kizziar in 11th grade journalism class. Every girl at Will Rogers High School wanted to be just like Jan Kizziar, and all the boys agreed. They wanted us to be just like her, too.
Mrs. Kizziar was preparing us to work on the Lariat and Tulsa school life in our senior year, but she prepared us for much more. She was an empowering teacher who inspired us and who trusted us to do the job she trained us to do. From that one class, 2/3 of us went on to obtain at least one college degree in the language arts.
2/3 of us worked in the media. 2/3 of us became teachers. She started us on the road to becoming authors, educators, writers, counselors, and leaders. We thought we were Mrs. Kizziar's crowning achievement.
But she went on to become a media figure herself and had success in several fields. She contributed to women's resources, mental health and well-being, She's impacted lives around the world. Back in '64, we were her kids, and she still considers us hers. To us, we're proud to call Janet Kizziar teacher, mentor, and friend.
Janet Wright Kizziar graduated from Will Rogers and the University of Tulsa. Returned to Will on the Hill to teach English and journalism. Then completed her doctorate in psychology at TU. She and her late twin, Dr. Judy Hagedorn, opened a psychology practice, hosted 2 local TV talk shows, and were the first women honored as University of Tulsa Distinguished Alumni. They appeared on network television shows including Good Morning America and Today, and were interviewed by Larry King, Dick Cavett, Barbara Walters, and Tom Snyder. The twins published 2 books, Search for Acceptance, The Adolescence and Self-Esteem, and Gemini, The Psychology and Phenomenon of Twins. Janet's proudest accomplishment is being a founding member of Fresh Start Women's Foundation. Fresh Start has helped more than 200,000 women in need who are seeking self-sufficiency, and opened a state-of-the-art Women's Resource Center on October 1st, 2002. She remains committed to helping women to help themselves. The YWCA in Phoenix honored Janet at their Tribute to Women for her work in health and healing. She continues to advocate for those dealing with domestic violence, child abuse, AIDS, codependency, drug and alcohol abuse, and adolescent pregnancy. She is listed in Who's Who in America, Who's Who in the World, Who's Who in American Women, and International Who's Who in Community Service. Janet's favorite quote is from George Eliot. It hangs on a plaque dedicated to her at the Women's Foundation Resource Center. What do we live for if not to make the world less difficult for each other?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Janet Kizziar.
I'm going to be your favorite inductee because I'm going to make the briefest talk y'all have ever heard. It's really good to be back here at Will Rogers. I've been back here numerous times. I went to high school here. I did my student teaching here with Madge Gibson, and you remember Madge Gibson, some of you. Do you? Okay. I taught here for a couple of years and had my wonderful 11th grade journalism students. We called ourselves the 11 J's, and there's several of them around the audience, and we have some honorary ones too. But you can imagine who nominated me. These were the people who spoke to announce me. I love them very much. I also appreciate the support of all of my English and journalism students, and thank you to the Will Rogers Community Foundation, Dick Risk, David Rader, Steve Wright, who's an integral part of this award, and he's also a wonderful school historian. And thanks to my husband, Mark, who has been my partner and biggest supporter since we met the first day of our first year at the University of Tulsa in journalism class. And Mark sat behind me and pulled my ponytail, and you can imagine what a turn on that was for a 17-year-old girl. Well, I married him anyway. Will Rogers and the faculty here have given me the educational foundation that has allowed me to continue to learn and to grow in my careers and in my life. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Some people are bigger than life to you, and Coach Morgan was surely that for many, many of us. I recall coming up here the first time as a freshman and meeting him and couldn't say a word. Intimidated, respectful. Anytime you come and meet a coach that you want to play for and want to play so bad for, it is just that way. That was just one part of Coach Morgan that we came to know. We knew the warm part of Coach Morgan, such as the time I was pitching and I was struggling so very, very bad, and I needed help from the sideline, and I looked for him to come off the bench and help me, and he strolled out there as he could only stroll, and he was going to be so comforting and so encouraging, I know, and he looked at me right in the eye and he said, "Raider, you throw one more ball, you're out of here." He was so very, very warm to do that. There was a day at practice when somebody was goofing around and caught him right up the side of the head with the ball, and he just, boom, hit. We didn't know if he's knocked out. We didn't know if it's hard to stop. We didn't know, and we were scared and didn't. And then he got up off the ground, and I won't mention the person who threw the ball. And he said to that person, he says, "If that's all you got, you can't make this team." And so we knew that. And some of us knew him as a teacher and really enjoyed being in his class, very organized, and enjoyed that. And some of us knew him after school when he would open up his house and we would have Fellowship of Christian Athletes meetings at his house. And that meant a lot to so many, many of us. As I walk away from playing for him, I think the one thing that many of us would say is that because he came from where we came, and because he played where we played, and because of the way he prepared and the way he prepared us, that there was never a time that we ever entered a game that we didn't think we could win. And sometimes you can only learn that through extracurricular activities. We were all blessed with many, many good teachers. Coach Morgan taught us how to win, and he taught us how to do it the right way. And for that, we are forever indebted.
Gordon Morgan was an all-state baseball player for Will Rogers in 1953, and upon graduation he was drafted into professional baseball. He played minor league ball for the Chicago White Sox and the St. Louis Cardinals, where he earned the nickname Cannonball for his powerful arm. A knee injury, however, ended his pro baseball career. Then Gordon left baseball for the U.S. Army. He later graduated from the University of Tulsa, where he was the varsity baseball coach from 1959 to 1962. Gordon returned to Rogers, where he taught and coached from 1962 to 1988, changing the lives of countless young people. He coached swimming, cross country, and baseball. 502 wins, 198 losses, winning 4 state championships. His teams won 10 conference championships and 13 regional titles. He coached 17 Oklahoma All-State players, 3 of whom were high school All-American. 10 went on to play professional baseball, with 2 going into the major leagues with the New York Mets. After retirement from Will Rogers, Gordon coached 9 years at Bishop Kelly High School, where he won 3 state championships, 9 regional, and 9 conference titles in girls softball. He co-founded the Sun Belt Classic Series, now known as the Heartland Baseball Classic, the elite high school baseball series in America, a baseball scout's dream for recruitment of excellent players. Gordon was named Coach of the Year 10 times by city, regional, and state associations, and was inducted into the Oklahoma Coaches Association Hall of Fame, Oklahoma Hall of Fame Baseball Coaches, Oklahoma Softball Coaches Hall of Fame, and Bishop Kelly Athletic Hall of Fame. Coach Morgan died in 2005.
Ladies and gentlemen, accepting for her husband, please welcome Lynn Morgan.
I want to thank David. He meant so much to us. He was a spectacular athlete and a fine man, and Gordon would be so pleased that David introduced him tonight. I also want to thank the board, the past inductees, and the friends who took the time to nominate my husband for this award. He had many awards, but this one would mean the most because he absolutely bled blue and gold. With the exception of 4 years as a student, a teacher, and a coach, he spent half of his life at Will Rogers High School. He loved his athletes and students, and he kept in touch with them, many of them throughout the years. He was the FCA sponsor for years, and our children grew up with the athletes at the meetings. And for you people out there that knew Gordon, you can relate to this. After one of the meetings, my daughter came to me when she was about 4, and she said, "Mommy, is my daddy's name Gordon or Coach?" Everybody called Gordon Coach. When he was ill and we were having some of our serious talks, he asked me, "When you die, do you think you're remembered for the things you tried to achieve in your lifetime?" Well, Coach, you're certainly remembered by your beloved school and your friends tonight. Thank you.
Hasn't this been a wonderful evening? Woo! I tell you, I found out a new saying of Will Rogers this year, and I was so excited. I couldn't believe it. I'd never heard it before. He says, "Why not go out on a limb? That's where all the fruit is." And of course, I love that. I mean, I should know. I've picked a lot of fruit myself, Come to the Florida Sunshine Tree for fresh tasting orange juice naturally. Orange juice with natural vitamin C from the Florida Sunshine Tree. I loved it. Oh, yeah. Why not go out on a limb? Well, what a great time we've had celebrating the achievements of all these wonderful new inductees into the Will Rogers Hall of Fame. I started to say Florida Citrus Hall of Fame. No. It's the Will Rogers Hall of Fame. It's getting late, folks. So we want to share a great experience as former students at Will Rogers, hearing of the successes achieved by our classmates. It makes me so proud to be here tonight. We want to ask everyone to stand because we're going to ask the quintet of Tony Bacher, Rick McNeely, Larry Owensley, Jeff Elkins, and Jack Rogers. And we want to close out this tonight with Will Rogers' fight song, Ride on You Ropers. Are we missing?
We're missing a few.
I don't have to fill up the gap, do I?
No, come on. If you like.
No, you go ahead.
Are you there, Will Rogers' name? Rock, 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 Open and random, lead them to corral. Round up those wandering doggies, since those grazing in a silo cow.
One more time.
Right under the spade, there's one Kentucky for you there, Will Rogers' name. Rock, 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 Open and random, lead them to corral. wandering doggies, Central's grazing in a stall cow.
Woo! And let's hear a last hand. Thank you so much. And let's hear it for all the inductees tonight. A last hand for our Hall of Fame members. Come on, say thank you. Thank you all for coming, and God bless you. Good night.